Well, good morning, Makers Church. I know you're confused because you're like, it's Father's Day. What is a woman doing on the stage? You know, I worked really hard to be a mom. Drew and I went through a long fertility journey. And so this past Mother's Day, I was speaking on Mother's Day. My mom was like, why are you speaking on Mother's Day? You should be resting. And I was like, wait a second. That's a good point. So I told Derek, I was like, hey, next year we're going to switch. Like, you'll speak on Mother's Day and I'll speak on Father's Day. And he's like, that sounds great. He's like, so you want to speak on Father's Day this year? And I was like, classic. Classic. Great. So you get me today. But man, I'm so excited. I should introduce myself. I'm Chalese, if we haven't met yet. I feel like that's like our typical line. I'm one of the pastors here, but I see new faces in the room. So if I don't think we literally haven't met yet. I'm Chalese. I'm one of the pastors here. For those of you who have heard it 200,000 times, just pretend like it's the first time you've ever heard it. But I'm so excited. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, father figures. Like I mentioned, you know, Drew and I went through quite the journey to get Loretta. And so I know that for a lot of even fathers in waiting, these were hard days for us for a long time. It was hard to sit in this space. We have friends who have recently lost fathers, people who don't have good relationships with their fathers. And so however you're showing up today, I'm just glad that you're here. I'm so grateful that you chose to spend Father's Day here with us. And the beauty of the series that we have been in, man, it has been such a journey. We're in a series called The Whole Story, from Genesis to Revelation, going through every single book of the Bible. And so today we're continuing with the book of Ecclesiastes. So we're going to watch the Bible Project video. It is about 8 minutes long, so I'm just going to let you know that so you come prepared. But we're going to watch this Bible Project video about the book of Ecclesiastes, and then I'm going to come back up and tell you some of my takeaways from it. So let's watch this together.
The book of Ecclesiastes. It's part of the Bible's wisdom literature, and it opens with this line: the words of Kohelet, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, in Hebrew, the word Kohelet, it means someone who has gathered people together. And in this case, it's to learn, so it's often translated in English as teacher. And the teacher is said to be a son or a descendant of King David. And so there are different views about who this figure might have been. Many think that it refers to King Solomon, others to maybe one of the later kings of David's line, and still others think that it's actually a later Israelite teacher who has adopted a Solomon-like persona as a teaching aid. Whichever of these views is correct, the key thing is to recognize that the teacher is a character in the book and is different than the author of the book, who remains anonymous. So we do hear the teacher's voice for most of the book, but it's actually a different voice, the author, who introduces us to the teacher in the first sentence and then at the end concludes the book by summarizing and evaluating everything the teacher just said. So the author is someone who wants us to hear all that the teacher has to say and then help us process it and form our own conclusion. So what does the teacher have to say? Well, the author summarizes the teacher's basic message at the beginning and right at the end. And it's Hevel, Hevel. Everything is utterly Hevel. Now, most English Bibles translate this word Hevel as meaningless, but that doesn't quite capture the heart of the idea. In Hebrew, Hevel literally means vapor or smoke, and the teacher uses this word 38 times in the book as a metaphor to describe how life is, first of all, temporary or fleeting, like a wisp of smoke. But secondly, also how life is an enigma or a paradox. Like smoke, it appears solid, but when you try and grab onto it, there's nothing there. So there's so much beauty or goodness in the world, but just when you're enjoying it, tragedy strikes and it all seems to blow away. Or we all have a strong sense of justice, but all the time bad things happen to good people. So life is constantly, it's unpredictable, it's unstable, or in the teacher's words, like chasing after the wind. Hevel. Now that's kind of a downer. So why is he saying all of this? The author's basic goal is to target all of the ways that we try to build meaning and purpose in our lives apart from God. And he lets the teacher deconstruct these. So the author thinks we spend most of our time investing energy and emotion in things that ultimately have no lasting meaning or significance. And he lets the teacher give us a hard lesson in reality. You can see this most clearly in the opening and closing poems, which focus first of all on time and then on death. So the teacher says, you can spend your whole life working and achieving because you think that makes your life meaningful. You should really stop and consider the march of time. For all of the human effort that takes place in the world, nothing really ever changes. So sure, we develop technology and we build nations that rise and fall, but go climb a mountain and see if it cares. It was there long before any of us, and it will be here long after. I mean, no one's even going to remember you or anything you did 100 years from now, but that mountain, it'll still be there. And the ocean will still be breaking on the beach, and the sun will still rise and set. And so time will eventually erase you and me and everything that we care about. And if that's not disheartening enough, the teacher also can't stop talking about death all the way through the book, but especially in this poem near the end. He says, death is the great equalizer, and it renders meaningless most of our daily activities. It devours the wise and the fool, the rich and the poor, no matter who you are, what you've done, good or bad, we're all going to die, and it's inescapable. So with these two ideas in hand, the teacher goes on to consider all the activities and false hopes that we invest our lives in to find meaning and significance, like wealth or career or social status or pleasure. So you think working hard is going to make life worth it? Think about the stress and the toll that takes on you, all the anxiety and the sleepless nights. And by the time you actually earn some wealth, you're going to be too old to enjoy it anyway. And then by the time that you have to pass it on to someone, they may not even be someone who cares about anything that you did. Or maybe you think pleasure is going to make life worth it for you. Go for it. Live for your vacations, live for the weekend party. Monday always comes. Hevel, hevel. Everything is utterly hevel. So what does the teacher advocate then? That we become pure hedonists or relativists? Well, no, that would be hevel too. The teacher acknowledges the ideas from Proverbs that living by wisdom and the fear of the Lord, that these have real advantages. On the whole, life will probably go better for you. See, but the problem is that even living by wisdom and the fear of the Lord, they're hevel too, because they don't guarantee a good life. Good people die tragically, and horrible people live long and prosper. There's just too many exceptions. And so even wisdom is hevel. Again, not meaningless, but an enigma. Wisdom doesn't work the way you think it should all of the time. So what's the way forward in the midst of all this hevel? And here, paradoxically, the teacher discovers the key to the true enjoyment of life under the sun. It's accepting hevel. It's acknowledging that everything in your life is totally out of your control. About 6 different times at some of the bleakest moments in his monologue, the teacher talks about the gift of God, which is the enjoyment of simple, good things in life, like friendship or family, a good meal, or a sunny day. You can't control these things. You're certainly not guaranteed them, but that's their beauty. When I come to adopt a posture of total trust in God, it frees me to simply enjoy my life as I actually experience it, not as I think it ought to be. Because even my expectations about what life ought to be are ultimately hevel. Hevel. Everything under the sun is utterly hevel. And so the teacher's words come to a close. Right here at the end, the author speaks up again, and he brings it all to a conclusion. He says, the teacher's words are very important for us to hear. He likens them to a shepherd's staff with a goad, a pointy end, which might hurt when it pokes you, but he says the teacher is trying to poke you to get you to move in the right direction towards greater wisdom. The author then warns us that you can actually take the teacher's words too far, and you could spend your whole life buried in books trying to answer life's existential puzzles. Don't try, he says. You'll never get there. And so instead, the author offers his own conclusion, and it's this: fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of humans, for God will bring every deed into judgment, every hidden thing, whether good or evil. And so the author thinks it's good to let the teacher challenge your false hopes and remind you that time and death make most of life completely out of your control. But what gives life true meaning is the hope of God's judgment. The hope that one day God will clear away all of the hevel and bring true justice to our world. And it's that hope that should fuel a life of honesty and integrity before God, despite the fact that I remain puzzled by most of life's mysteries. And that's the wisdom of the book of Ecclesiastes.
Hevel of Hevel, says the teacher. Hevel of Hevels, all is Hevel. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see, all is Hevel, and a chasing after wind. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and again, all was Hevel, and a chasing after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me. For all is Hevel and a chasing after wind. For to the one who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is Hevel and a chasing after wind. For the fate of humans and the fate of animals is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath. And humans have no advantage over the animals, for all is Hevel. Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from one person's envy of another. This also is Hevel and a chasing after the wind. For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow. Hevel of Hevels, says the teacher. All is Hevel. This book is so emo, so Shakespearean, right? Like, oh, Hevel. So dramatic, so poetic, right? Everything is meaningless. Everything is Hevel, a vapor, a smoke, like everything temporary, fleeting, here one day, gone the next. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. I'm not gonna lie, teenage Chalese loved Ecclesiastes. I know I've talked about it before. I grew up, I was such an emo kid. I watch all these kids today. I'm like, I walked so you could run, Well, I had to straighten my black swoosh bangs, and I mean, we could have just gotten up here and read my journals, and you'd be like, was that from Ecclesiastes? No, it was my journal from when I was 13. Had just come back from church camp being tortured by my unrequited love, Adult Chalese reads Ecclesiastes and has existential crises, right? I have a hard time sometimes sitting with books like this, books like Ecclesiastes, because they always make me feel something very deeply. And in this season of my life, I like to think things really deeply. That's what I love, being inspired by new intellectual revelation or prophetic vision in this series has been so amazing. Because every time, I don't know about you guys, but I'm learning something new every day. Every time we watch one of these videos, I don't remember who I was talking to last week. He was like, I'm literally getting my doctorate in theology and I'm learning new things about the Bible from these Bible Project videos. And I didn't want to be same, bro. I did not know this. But it's been so amazing to be intellectually inspired by things that I've never heard before or never thought of it that way. But if I'm really honest, the book of Ecclesiastes does not do that for me. Right? I didn't read this book. I read it over and over waiting for that thought, that thing that would pop out that I'd be like, oh, that's the intellectual thing we can just hold on to. But I kept reading the book and all I felt was existential dread and this deep, deep feeling. And what I find really ironic when I think about preaching from a book like Ecclesiastes on a Sunday is it makes a really big point of pointing out that nothing is new under the sun. Right? So if you came here hoping to hear something you haven't heard before in this talk, spoiler alert, you're probably not going to hear it. And if you came hoping to find meaning for your life, maybe you're I'm going to go to church on Father's Day 2026 and I'm going to discover the meaning of life. I have bad news for you about what the book of Ecclesiastes says and has to teach us about the meaning of life. Because the most repeated phrase, I don't know if you guys clocked it, 38 times, is everything is meaningless. All is Hevel. So happy Sunday. Welcome to church. I hope you're not depressed yet, but we're going to jump into this book of Ecclesiastes because as I was thinking about this talk, I was like, what do I do with this book? This was a pretty good overview of the structure of the Ecclesiastes, when it was written, who it was written by. Most likely not Solomon, because the language, it's the equivalent of like if somebody was writing today and it sounded very Shakespearean, you wouldn't assume, oh, that came from 2024. You'd be like, wait, 2024? What year are we in? 2026? Whew, man, I'm going back to like when I became a mom. I've lost the last 2 years of my life, but the purpose of this book, it can't be found in some of those structural elements. I tried. I was like, there's got to be something more here than just everything is meaningless. Like, you can't just get up and just keep saying over and over, like, bad news, guys, everything is meaningless. But the more I thought about this book, I found something that really has been resonating in my heart, in like the core of my bones and the fiber of my being over this past year. And so I want to focus on just this one aspect of the book of Ecclesiastes. And the one thing I cannot stop thinking about when I was reading through the book is this. Wisdom isn't just knowing what to do. It's knowing when to do it. I'm going to say that again. Wisdom is not just knowing what to do. It's knowing when to do it. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. It says, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. For everything there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven." Have you ever had the right thing but at the wrong time? Right? Maybe you got that job, that right promotion, or that right idea, or maybe that right relationship, but like the timing, it just wasn't right. And if I've learned anything in my life about timing, it is like that right thing, that best thing, that thing you've wanted your whole life, whatever that thing is, at the wrong time can be the wrong thing. And no matter how much we wish that weren't true, we know it to be true. Like maybe you don't even have language for it, but if you've ever been in a season where you just feel like something is off, there's not necessarily like anything wrong, but it's just like something in life just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel like it's clicking. It doesn't feel like there's alignment. And what I've discovered is when I begin to feel like that dissonance, I call it like a dissonance in my soul, like it's not just quite settled, or my spirit, it's usually because I'm trying to force some part of me into a season I'm not supposed to be in. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Like a season I'm not supposed to be in. Ecclesiastes tells us that there is a season, a period of time for everything, meaning not everything is for every season. Right, so there is a time to laugh, but there is also like a time when we should weep. There is a time to keep, but there's also a time to throw away. For all of you who like to hoard things in your closets, there is a time to get rid of stuff. Not everything can be sentimental. Okay. I'm looking at you, babe. There's a time for love and a time for hate, a time to birth new things and a time to let old things die away. There is this rhythmic breathing in and out of life, and it demands like this responsiveness from us. Like try to breathe out and in at the same time. Like just try it, like literally like try it right now. Try to like breathe out and in. Like that doesn't feel good, right? It's like we're forcing something that shouldn't be, but we're like, no, breathing in is good. Yeah, but not when you're trying to breathe out. You can only do one of these things at the time. And so when we find ourselves trying to force something, what I find in my own life, what it does is it leaves me out of sync, not just with myself, but like the natural order of the universe. I think that this is what the teacher is trying to get us to understand. Queleth he's not just being poetic, right? He's making a really profound claim that timing is everything. It doesn't just matter what you do, it matters when you do it. But we live in a culture that has really lost its sense of season, right? Especially living in San Diego. You know, I was standing in line last week at Morning Glory. If you've ever been, Little Italy, best breakfast, Consortium Holding, I love you, sponsor us, Makers Church. And I'm standing in line and I see these two people in front of me and they like met random strangers in line. I was like, oh, my nightmare. Literally just like trying to look busy, waiting for Martha to show up. And they're talking about how they were there from Minnesota. And I'm like, of course you are, because San Diego. And so they're like, oh, like what brings you to San Diego? And they're like, we Googled what place has good weather 365 days a year, and San Diego came up. And it was the number one answer. And I was like, well, that's fair. You know, so they were thinking about retiring here in San Diego. But we don't experience in San Diego the seasonality because we have good weather 365 days a year. If you walked outside right now, could you tell me if it was November or July? No. Could you tell me if it was January? We don't know. We just know that, like, it's happening. The sun is out and it is shining, right? And so unlike our poor friends on the East Coast and our Pacific Northwest neighbors, like, we don't have that intrinsic sense sometimes of seasonality that other people do. But we can see this echoed in other spaces, right? You can sense that there are some things that should happen in certain seasons. So Drew and I are in a really interesting season. On many massive fronts. Loretta just started a new school, which is amazing. She's in a Spanish immersion school. She's learning Spanish. She walked up. Oh my gosh, we went to my nephew's little birthday yesterday. He's 1 year old. And she walks up and grabs his hand and goes, hola, unprompted. I was like, oh my gosh, my baby's a genius. Everybody bilingual already. And then I'm like, Loretta, come here. And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, another one. So smart. But a great new season. She's in a new school. I got a new job. I am now a principal at Helix High School, which is, thank you, like life-changing, amazing. My husband found out Tuesday he lost his job. So woo! Amazing, not supposed to happen, not part of the plan, right? So if anybody's looking for a really amazing communications director, his name is Drew Young. He's sitting right here. He is for hire. Lots of change, right? Lots of change happening. And on top of all of that, we're in what has been a very long, massive backyard remodel. This backyard remodel has literally spanned like several seasons, several months. I think we started in like September. And I knew it was bad when he texted me and he was like, okay, we got to talk. And I was like, no, words you don't want to hear from a contractor. You want to hear like, everything's great, we're moving forward. And he's like, so about this hill that you live on? I was like, no, Darren, don't tell me. But this backyard remodel has been kind of the biggest thing that we've been in. And it was interesting, I was talking to Katie Harry, one of our worship leaders, and she was like, oh, it's so interesting because she's like, how are you finding inspiration? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, all your talks, like you talk about nature and your garden and your trees. And she's like, and you haven't had those for months. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this your kind way of saying you have been uninspired by my, I feel uninspired lately, but it was so sweet. And I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? You're so right. Like in all the last few little talks that I have given, these sermons, there's, I guess that little something missing. Like the way that I usually feel inspired is through nature and being in nature. And so I hadn't even thought about it until we got some trees back. We had to completely demolish our whole yard. We used to have 27 fruit trees. It was amazing. We had what I would describe as a feral garden. We just let it run wild and had all of this beautiful stuff that was absolutely not to code and ruining the hillside, and had to get rid of all of it. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until we planted this tiny little lemon tree. And I was like, we're back, let's go. And it was literally something dormant was waking back up within me when I saw these garden beds going in. And I was like, okay, and then I looked and I was like, but these are tiny little trees. I was like, where's my big, I miss my big trees. I want my yuzu lemon tree that was 50 years old and gave me more fruit than I could even have and could share with everybody here. We could have literally started an orchard. That could have been your new job, sorry. But we got rid of the trees. And I've got these tiny little trees and all this little fledgling new growth, I'm like, oh, look at these little teeny tomatoes. And I have this inner compulsion to fix it. I'm like, how do I make you grow faster? I was like, I don't like this season. I don't want tiny lemon trees. I want big lemon trees. I want lots of fruit. And how do I force you to get into a season of growth? And I'm looking at my wilting strawberries and I just want to drown them in water. I'm like, you're clearly thirsty, but the timer that waters my plants says it's not, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, you need something because you're not growing fast enough for my liking. And I look at our little baby citrus trees and they've got these little splotchy leaves and I'm like, fertilize them. And I'm like, something tells me that's not the right thing to do. I don't know. I'm not actually a gardener, but there's something in me that's like, I don't know if I should do that, but I know what I know. And what I know is that I want to skip this part. I want to skip this part and get to the good part where I'm frolicking through this lush orchard garden, eating raspberries off the vine, and sharing my abundance and becoming a trad wife and baking sourdough again. I want to go back to those COVID days. Oh, no, never mind. But I can't do any of those things. Literally, all I can do is wait. I walk down to my garden every morning and I look and I'm like, still disappointing. Okay, I'll come back. And I keep waiting and I keep waiting because that's all I can do in this season. Because seasonality is so important when you are growing a garden. And if you try to rush from one season to the next, your fruit will suffer. Expert gardeners, I just learned this, when they plant new plants, right, they will actually pluck off any existing fruit off of the tree or the vine. Shocking to me. I literally went to Walter Anderson, found the raspberry bush that had the most fruit and was like, that one. Planted it in my garden and my sister's like, you gotta get rid of all that fruit. And I was like, what are you talking about? The point of this is the fruit. And she explained to me that every bud needed to go, even a hint of fruit. And she was like, if you don't know this, plants can only concentrate their energy in one direction. And their natural default is going to be to grow fruit. But what happens if you're trying to establish something new is that if it is growing fruit, it's not growing roots. And so what happens is it will stop growing its roots. It'll put all of its energy into the fruit. So you might get raspberries quicker, but your plant is not going to have the structure that it needs to survive that next season. So there's a time for everything. But me, I just want fruit now, right now, immediately. But Ecclesiastes reminds us there is a time to prune, which if you don't know what pruning is, it's cutting back branches. And sometimes those branches have fruit on them. There's a time to fertilize. There is a time to water heavily, and there's a time that you have to let the ground rest. There's a time for all of us for that inward, deep root growth. And there's also a time for fruit. And I think probably the hardest truth that I have had to learn recently with my strawberries especially, it's not just bad things that can kill a plant, like pests and disease. It's good things done at the wrong time. Too much fertilizer will actually burn the roots of your trees. But you're like, but fertilizer is good. Yeah, but too much of it at the wrong time will actually destroy your tree. Pruning at the wrong season can actually shock the tree. You're like, look at me, I'm getting rid of all this old growth, and then the tree can't survive such deep pruning in the wrong season. Watering too much actually drowns what you're trying to grow, which doesn't make sense. You look thirsty, I'm gonna give you water, but that's not what you're supposed to do. Because good things done at the wrong time can become the wrong thing. We see this truth echoed in Proverbs 25:16. It says, if you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it and you will vomit. I feel like there's a story there, Jordan. We're gonna find out next time. Honey is natural, right? It's good. It's a sweet gift. It's a sweet treat. But consuming too much of it makes you sick. And I love what even Ecclesiastes warns us about. I don't know if you noticed it at the end. It's echoed again in Proverbs 25:27. It says, it is not good to eat too much honey. What was it with honey? I don't know, but let this be a warning to you. It is not good to eat too much honey. But listen to this, nor is it honorable to search out matters that are too deep. That's interesting. You ever try to over spiritualize things? It's just not that deep, you know? It's is God trying to teach us something, or did Berkeley just change their mind about the remote work policy? I don't know, but everything doesn't need to be so deep and intellectual and spiritual. Because in Ecclesiastes 7:16, it echoes this. It says, do not be over righteous. You're like, what do you mean? Righteousness is good. Why would you not want to be that? It's yeah, no, don't be too much of that. Neither be over wise. You ever known somebody who's too smart for their own good? If they're sitting next to you, yeah, don't even look at them. Just be like, I don't know. I've never even thought about somebody who might be that way in my own household. But, I hear other people have those people. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? You ever meet somebody who's just blissfully ignorant? I don't know. You're like, have you seen the news? They're like, no, I'm not on social media. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this life you live? What do you mean? You're not in existential dread like me? He's like, no, don't do that to yourself. Why destroy yourself? See, the point of Ecclesiastes is not to put us into existential dread, to be everything is meaningless. Just don't care about anything. What I take from the book of Ecclesiastes is that you just have to learn whatever season you are in, and then you can flourish. That's what I took from the book. But also, that's not what the book says, right? The book of Ecclesiastes actually doesn't say that. The book of Ecclesiastes says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you know what season you're in, because guess what? Hevel, it's gone. It doesn't matter if you've worked so hard to earn all these things, because guess what? Hevel, it's gone. It doesn't matter if you're in this really hard season and you don't want to be in this hard season because it's really hard. Guess what? It doesn't matter, because it will too be gone. It is Hevel, no matter what you pursue, what you try to earn, what you try to gain, even wisdom. It's all a vapor. Here today, gone tomorrow. And so we need to hold everything loosely. We need to hold everything open-handed, which is so much easier said than done. So for me, what I am trying to learn in this season is just how to recognize whatever season I am in. Not so I can hold on to it, not so I can control it, not so I can master it, but just so I can sense what God is doing in me and around me. So how do we do that, right? How do you know, what season you are in? I think sometimes the best way to learn is through trial and error, especially when it comes to gardening, right? If you tried to go plant certain crops right now, you would learn the hard way. That's not the season for fill in the blank, whatever. I literally couldn't even think of a crop right now. What's something we don't plant right now? Who knows? But if you did and you were like, oh, I'm going to plant, see, I'm trying again and it's not coming to me. Thank you. Carrots. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to talk about carrots. If you tried to plant it right now, it wouldn't happen, right? And sometimes we learn through trial and error. We try to go get that job, and you're like, man, I'm really trying. Or you force that relationship, and you're like, this is just not happening. But I want to look at what I would say are like 3 mistakes I think we make when it comes to living seasonally. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you kind of like maybe what not to do. Number 1, we try to skip seasons. We want the fruit, right, without the winter dormancy. We want the harvest without the pruning. We want healing without the grieving. Ecclesiastes 3:4 says, a time to weep and a time to laugh. Not or, right? A time to mourn and a time to dance. But that tendency that we have is like we skip straight to dancing because weeping is really uncomfortable. Or we laugh so we don't cry. Or we self-medicate because like it hurts less than feeling the weight of like the grief that we carry. But skip seasons don't disappear, right? They show up later, usually at like the worst possible time. Carl Jung says, what you resist persists, right? What you resist persists. Think about a time when you just tried to like push through something. Right? You're just like trying to rush past the season you're in. Like, I'm just going to shove this down and deal with that later. Like, how did that go? Did that work out well for you? It's never worked out well for me. Are you still carrying the weight of that season? Second mistake I think we make is we try to stay in seasons that have ended. Right? We keep fertilizing when it's time to let the ground rest. You're like, just one more fruit, just one more crop, one more thing. We keep grinding when it's time to Sabbath. We keep holding on when it's time to let go. Ecclesiastes 3:6 says a time to seek and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. We've talked a lot over the past few years about spiritual disciplines, prayer, fasting, reading scripture, Sabbath. But there's one spiritual discipline that like nobody puts on that list, and I think it might be like one of the hardest ones. And it's not about adding something to your life. It's not about trying and showing up for something new, but I think it's recognizing when a season is over and having the courage to release it. It's a discipline of subtraction, of letting go, of loosening our grip on the things that like we have built, that we've loved, that have like identified us, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. And in that, like trusting that God is doing something in the letting go that he simply couldn't do while we were still holding on. But like nothing in our culture and our lives like trains us for this. Everything is around optimizing for addition, not subtraction. Everything is teaching you how to accumulate more, how to grow, how to go. But like nobody is teaching us how to release well, how to end well, how to grieve what was good and still trust that something better is coming. But Ecclesiastes does. It says there is a time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to seek and a time to give up, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. And yeah, it's very poetic, but I think the teacher is not just being poetic. I think he's describing a deep spiritual practice, a discipline, something that requires intention, something that requires courage and honesty and a lot of trust. And over the course of my life, I've felt this call to the discipline of subtraction, of letting go. Sometimes it's like hobbies, like I don't think we're kayakers anymore. Like, I don't think I make sourdough bread. I think that was a COVID hobby, and I let that go. Or even jobs, right? Relationships, even spiritual disciplines. Like there was a season where I was like, I don't know if fasting food for me is like right in this season. And I had to like let go of this control of like, I'm going to always know what to do, when to do, how to do it, and keep adding. But I'm the sort of person that commutes 2 hours a day round trip for 15 years to my school instead of getting a job closer to home, which I could have done probably at any time. Because when I commit, I commit. I'm like, this is what we're doing. And it's beautiful. Like, I love my school. It's such a beautiful season. I don't regret it at all. But that same beautiful quality can also be something that keeps me in spaces that I have outgrown without even realizing it. Because I don't know about you, but I feel guilty when I leave something for the next thing. I felt so guilty taking this new job. And everyone around me was like, what are you talking about? You're going to be 4 minutes from your house. Why would you feel guilty? You have to do what's right for you and your family. And I was like, says who? I have always felt like I owe things to other people and I'm responsible for their feelings and what do they think? And Hevel, it's all meaningless. Who cares? Take the job. Don't take the job. Do whatever you want to do. It's just a season and there will be new seasons. But the worst seasons I've had is when I try to hold so tightly to something that was no longer right for me. And no good fruit ever comes from those seasons. And so if you need any encouragement today, there is a season for everything. A season. Not an eternity, not a forever, just a season. And learning how to understand the seasons is how we continue to grow in this wisdom that books like Ecclesiastes and Proverbs are inviting us into. Third mistake, and we're going to wrap up, is we try to control what cannot be controlled. Right? Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I can't always make sense of what God is doing in my life. Sometimes it feels like you work really hard for something and you get that thing. And then other times it feels like you work just as hard for that other thing and you don't get that thing and you can never quite get it right. And you want to, and you just keep forcing it and trying. And I think that's the trap. I think thinking we can somehow force things to work out for our good or control our outcomes or hold and contain what we've worked so hard to gain. But again, we come back to Ecclesiastes and it says Hevel, everything is a vapor. Everything is fleeting, right? That relationship, that job, it's smoke. It's a shadow. These things that you feel like define you, try and grasp them and see how quickly. Everything is here 1 minute and gone the next. And if we want to learn to live seasonally, I think it starts with us just holding everything open-handed. Which is terrifying, right? Do you think I wanted to be up here being like, and my husband just lost his job this week? But what a coincidence that I start preaching about holding things open-handed and God's like, well, let's see how good you are at doing that thing. Did I cry? Yes. Did I also have moments of peace? Yes. There was a season, and I lived 47 seasons in the last 5 days, feeling all the range of emotion. I was like, God is so good. And then I was like, God has forsaken me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be great. And then I was like, everything is meaningless, right? But it's when you experience it and you know it, in the depths, you just know nothing is going to stay because you want to control it. There's nothing I can do. What is going to be, right? I don't know what Drew's next job is going to be. I just know he's going to have an amazing next job because that's how God has always worked and continues to show up in our lives. And nothing between here and then is going to change it. All that's going to do is impact how I can enjoy the rest of my life in these next few days, weeks, months. Oh, God. All right. I said I was going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up. I don't even know if that timer's right. I'm not looking at it. Okay, how do we do this? How do we live seasonally? How do we learn to recognize the season we are in to move from one season to the next? John Muir, phenomenal naturalist, Muir's Wilderness, if you've never been. It says, not in their goals, but in their transitions are the lives of men great. What a profound quote. Not in their goals, not in who you become or what you accomplish, but in their transitions are the lives of men great. What makes us great is how we move from one season to the next, from hevel to hevel. That's what reveals our true character. So if we want to be people who live wisely, who hold things loosely, who trust deeply, what do we have to do? Number one, we have to name the season we're actually in. Barbara Brown Taylor says the practice of paying attention is the practice of noticing what is really going on around you and within you instead of what you wish were going on or what you fear is going on. Are you in a pruning season? Are you in a dormant season, a harvest season, a planting season? It might not be the season you want, but maybe it's just the season that you are in. Another amazing author, one of my favorites, Henry David Thoreau, says, live in each season as it passes. Live in it, breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of the earth. See, every season has something different to offer us, a different drink, a different fruit, a different taste, a different experience. And if we try to get out of a season, we're gonna miss everything that it has to offer. Second thing, stop doing things out of season. Robin Wall Kimmerer says plants know how to be in their season. They don't apologize for going dormant. They don't rush their flowering. They don't produce fruit before the roots are ready. We have much to learn from their patience. So be patient. Stop trying to do winter things in the summer. Stop trying to do spring things in the fall. As silly as it sounds, like I imagine like something showing up with like snow boots and skis to like Mammoth in August, being like, I'm ready to ski. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not ski season. But we do that all the time. We think we can force anything if we just try hard enough. If we just show up and keep doing it, because we can't accept, like, for everything there is a season. And so maybe just think, like, what are you trying to force right now? What is not working? What do you need to just let go? Stop dragging your ski boots on the beach. You look ridiculous. It's beach season. And finally, third, trust the gardener. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, God makes everything beautiful in its time. The gardener knows when to prune, when to fertilize, when to let the ground rest. And our job is not to manage the seasons. It's to trust the one who does, right? To tune in to his ruach, his vapor, his breath, his spirit. Ecclesiastes talks about hevel as this immaterial thing that becomes hard to grasp, but in the same breath, I think about the ruach, the spirit of God that is also like that, but that brings meaning to things that are meaningless. And so where do you start? I feel like I've said I'm going to close 3 times, and I think I gave you the wrong notes of when to come up. So I just want to acknowledge publicly, we talk all the time about how we will never do this to you and make you play for like 13 minutes, but I swear this is the last page, okay? Psalm 19, 1-4. Abby's like, I'm going to start hitting minor chords. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. You want to learn the true meaning of Ecclesiastes? Go plant anything. First time I planted carrots, I was like, we're going to eat off the land. They were like this big. I was so depressed. I was like, nobody's eating these. I didn't know they grew baby carrots. Right? Try growing basil from Trader Joe's on your countertop. That'll humble you real quick. And you'll be like, I control nothing. I've done everything for you. Wendell Berry says, adopt the pace of nature. Her secret is patience. And it may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. So if you would stand with me, see, look, I'm still, we got it. Look, they're standing now. Job 14, last verse, 7 and 9. This is a hard season for you. I don't know what season you're in, but if it's a hard season, Job says, at least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water, it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. Let's pray together. God, I want to pray this morning for the one who is in the middle of a season they didn't choose and didn't ask for. May you find the courage to stay in it long enough to let it teach you what it came to teach you. For the one who has been rushing, white-knuckling, forcing and pushing, may you find the grace to unclench your hands and remember that the gardener tends the garden, and you are not the gardener. For the one sitting in dormancy, wondering if anything is actually growing underneath all this stillness and silence, may you trust that roots grow deepest in the seasons that look the most like nothing. For the one who is grieving a season that has ended, may you grieve it fully and freely, knowing that the tree that releases its leaves in autumn isn't dying, it's preparing. For the one who cannot yet see how any of this is beautiful, may you hold on to the promise that he makes everything beautiful in its time. And in every season, the ones you choose and the ones you didn't, the ones that are ending and the ones just beginning, the ones that feel like dying and the ones that feel like coming alive. Remember, you are held by the one who sets the stars in place, who counts the grains of sand, who calls the sparrows by name, and who has never once lost track of you. Yes, everything is hevel, vapor, breath, smoke, fleeting and ungovernable and gone before we can grasp it. And yet not one moment of it is wasted in the hands of the one who makes all things beautiful in its time. Amen.